Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Non-Native Leader, a video podcast series where we explore lives, the stories, the challenges of people who are leaders in their industries, but they were not born in an English-speaking country. Previously, on the series, we talked about people in academia, NGO leaders, we talked to fintech leaders, leaders in IT, really all the broad spectrum of leaders worldwide who have one thing in common. They were not born in an English-speaking country. I'm pleased today to have here with me Marek Sowa. Hi Marek.
Hello.
And yeah, is that like all people I've met, he's had an interesting career. And I mean, I think you are still in IT, but I want to know a bit more of what you're doing these days, Marek, because it's pretty interesting, I think. So first of all, tell us a bit, where are you, first of all?
Oh yeah. So what I'm doing, there's quite a lot. So I'm back to Poland. So I spent half my life in Poland, and obviously I've moved later on to Ireland, to Dublin, where I spent quite a considerable amount of my time, and now back to Poland. In reality, what I do right now, we could put it into three separate hats. So I work at a company called Capgemini. We're a global systems integrator, so technology and business transformation advisory company. And my role is twofold. The first one is I'm leading Generative Technology Center of Excellence for business operations. So use cases like HR, supply chain, contact center, finance and accounting type of transformation, powered by generative AI. So I'm leading both the research and development teams, product design, product development, but also working directly with customers on changing the way how their businesses work, powered by generative technologies and applied artificial intelligence. But I also work within the broader company to define the strategy, the products, the services portfolio of how the company should look like in the next couple of years, and how we want to grow our capabilities and strategy around everything what is happening on the market right now, and what the companies need. Also, I'm contributing for academia, so I'm researcher in the trust and security space around artificial intelligence, focusing on adversarial attacks, and the educator, I would say. So I'm working with universities, I'm working with high schools as well, on teaching younger generation or younger people, and not so younger, middle or top leadership around what is AI, how to use it, what are the risks and the benefits around it. So yeah.
Wow. Mind-blowing, Marek, already.
Yeah,
Okay.
it changed a lot over past
Yeah,
decades. So yeah.
absolutely, man. I love it. Okay, let's get our bearings because I'm already lost, I have to say. So business, academia, and education. So three main areas we could say. Okay, my obvious question would be, which one do you prefer? Well, feel free not to answer it.
Oh, it is difficult. I'll be absolutely honest, because we're creating some really amazing stuff in terms of both the technology and experiences. But which one is more my favorite is difficult, because I love working with people. I've been very lucky, I have to say that, because me moving from Poland very early on with English actually based on Stargate TV series or watching Star Wars over and over and over. So my English was extremely bad, and I was lucky to land in Ireland and have opportunities with people that were looking at it for me. Hey, not yet another Polish guy that barely speaks English, but actually looking from potential talent to grow. I want someone to give me a chance years ago, and actually some of the people here, obviously you're part of that, and obviously some of the previous speakers here as well, shout out to Francesco, were actually people who gave me a shot on it and said, hey, okay, we believe in you, and I want to pass that torch later on. So working with either younger generation, and actually seeing them grow, and sometimes being jealous of it, especially in data science field. It's absolutely amazing feeling when you see them grow, create careers, or
Yeah,
even create their own companies. It is absolutely amazing feeling. On the other hand, especially with everything that is happening right now with generative technologies or generative AI, there's so much hype. Um, it
absolutely.
it it creates so much pleasure to work with clients and the companies that actually want to use these technologies and want to change the experiences for people. So employees, their customers, their vendors, and so on. And seeing these newest cutting edge technologies that sometimes we couldn't even dream of before actually being applied, that's exciting as well. So it's difficult to choose, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that
It's
was
something else.
that wasn't an easy question, but I had to ask it. I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist, really. And so so what you're doing, and I really, as I said earlier, I really love it because not only you are building up all this knowledge, but you're passing it on, which is pretty amazing, I'd say, and it's actually something that we should see more of it, in my opinion.
Mm,
Uh, I'm a bit biased when we talk about teaching, but that's that's what I love to see more. So yeah, as you said, there's a hype around AI and everything around it. But the idea is, can we actually use it? Can we actually use it in an intelligent, in a clever way to our benefit?
mm,
Yeah. So which is the question really that I see coming up over and over again. So yes, AI, but what can we do with it? Are we just
mm,
witnessing it, or are we protagonists? And that's one like compelling question, I'd say, these days. And fair play to people like you who are taking an active part in making it, let's say, more accessible to everybody. And this is great, I believe. And yeah,
I think it's important, especially since we're on the side of, let's say, non-native leaders. I think this is very important because it's great opportunity as well for people that, for example, don't feel that confident about, like, for example, language barriers or something like that, or people that are thinking about changing their way of life or way of work, or maybe they want to go into IT or move out from IT, be closer to the business. It just creates so many interesting opportunities out there, where who you as a person, who are you as a person, and who are you as a value add to the society, to the companies, actually matters more than, like, my English isn't perfect. I'm still learning and reading books on in English and so on. But people have tendency of finally ignoring these mistakes in grammar, or less being focused on the smaller words. And the second thing for me, I was watching some of the previous episodes here in the podcast, and I found one common theme that for us, sometimes, especially on the technology side, it's easier to express some of the lingos, like say, in English, because that's the only
yeah,
common language in the technology right now. But even in our own native languages, we don't have
yeah,
translation for it. And for example, when I teach, when I'm teaching people in their languages, like Polish, obviously I'm Polish, so I have problems with translating between languages. I was like,
yeah.
hey,
You
set
just
of
can't. You can
baseline.
just can't. Yeah, just can't translate some of the words. Which is, yeah, as you said, this is it's got two faces, like two sides really to it. So one is, yeah, we have some sort of global language, but from another point of view is, wait a minute, uh do I know what I'm saying? It's a this it makes it a bit complicated, in my opinion. uh, but in a case like and just to get back to what you were saying earlier on, in your case, the language of technology actually helps you overcome the general, the more common language barriers, because you could talk technology and you could show what you were capable of, and that actually gave you an opportunity, which is which is great. And it also shows like your dedication, and it shows how this new universal language can actually help us reach new height. But to get back to that, that must have been quite challenging for you at the beginning, I'd say. So how did you cope with it?
Um, Honestly, I had to learn three skills about, for example, the language itself. So I've been early in my career, I've been focused on learning how to communicate in English and be as I've, for example, worked on my Irish accent, which is absolutely bad, because I thought this is what is expected of me, right? So how do I communicate and so on? And what I realized very early on, there is not just one language because in reality we're talking here about language of a business. So
Yeah.
specific lingo, you're talking to a CFO, there are some abbreviations that you need to know and that they will understand. They're common globally across languages, right? Like P2P, O2C, or hire to retire, and so on. Like the names, and
The
you need to
word,
know them.
the words of
Yeah,
acronyms. Oh,
yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, business, global business loves acronyms. I think the word
it's
is
like,
now based on that. So business language is one. Then there's language of technology. For me, this is not only about how to translate technology to the business and all the way around, but also like mathematics, coding, programming languages as well, JavaScript or Python. So very often when I'm actually on a calls with, for example, or on meetings in Germany or in Spanish-speaking countries, or even in Italy, for example, I always make a joke, and every single time of that, I'm saying my languages are English, Python, and JavaScript, and depending on the recipient, I can actually talk code or talk
yeah.
technology using specific language. But there's also, so we have business, we have technology language, but probably the most important and most difficult skill as a leader that I had to learn was a language of storytelling.
Uh,
And that's not something that teach you in the schools. That's not something that is a part of corporate onboarding training and
nope.
so on. Is to be comfortable not only talking about the business, depending on who you're talking. It's very different when you're talking to chief finance officer versus
Sure.
a manager or business analyst. But it's also about how to convey messages and
Yeah.
uh, how to present a technology that was used to be just code into an impact, value, and how to shape that. Even if you're designing an offers, for example, or you're designing product or services, there's a challenge, there's a hero story, there's
Sure.
the deep dive into the technology and the benefit, what it takes, and you can actually make it almost like a template of it. But it's a skill set that I think took me probably around a decade to learn and feel comfortable about it, and how do I present and how do I speak about it. I
Yeah.
have a couple of tricks around it. So actually,
Nice.
how I teach my own leaders, I said, whenever you think that you have an idea for a product or a service or something, imagine yourself doing a TED talk, or imagine yourself on a
Mhm.
conference. You're in front of 1,000 people. Will they listen to you? What are you talking in a way that it's actually addressing their questions? What kind of questions would they have? And this is an exercise that I do, maybe not on a daily basis, but every single time when I'm thinking about something new, some new technology or some new
Yeah.
use case or product. It's one of these exercises that I've actually learned myself using TED talks in the past. I was like, how they're talking about it?
Yeah,
What makes the way how CEO of Microsoft or CEO of Google,
exactly.
when they're talking, how they convey the message. And I spent countless hours just watching videos and actually
Yeah.
analyzing. It's like that makes it
How
interesting.
how do they speak? Yeah, this
Yeah.
is what they say, like think about your audience before you start even telling a story. And
Mm.
you can see this in action. Uh, what they don't normally tell you is all the hours and hours and hours of practice you need to put in, which is, and
Mm.
you're a master in that, because I know that you are capable of putting in the hours, because practice, is, they say practice makes it perfect. But
Mm.
it is true. It is not just buzzwords or cliche. It is actually true, I believe, and you're the
Oh,
living proof.
and actually, literally yesterday, so I was at a conference, and I was talking to some of the students out there as well, and I said, the skill that we as leader we need to have for business, for technology and storytelling, it's the same skill that students need to have to get their first job. So like, it's not only about sending a CV, it's about conveying a message through CV, or I actually make jokes that interviews is a skill. So because you get nervous initially, and then you get more exposure and experience, you understand the questions and how they're being shaped and what the companies want you to focus on to present yourself. I see a lot of
Sure.
even medial level leaders forgetting about it, and what is the audience, and it's a skill set. I think it's something they want to grow. And if then it also goes back, for example, to the business language. I still remember the very first meeting I had when I joined my current company. It was 7 years ago. I've met with one of the awesome leaders, a great mentor to me, Carol. It was the very first dinner we just met and so on, and she's looking at me and, Marek, great to have you on board in the company, where we have great expectations about how you're going to change our lives with
Oh.
AI. And she said, what do you prefer, O2C or P2P? And I'm just looking at her and I have
Hmm.
no idea what she's talking about.
Word.
So I'm sorry, Carol, but for me, P2P is a protocol, how basically software exchanges information between each other. And O2C is like drugs in the that you buy like for headache and so on.
Yeah.
And she's looking at me, and I lost so much confidence on that day because I didn't realize what she was talking about. It was
Yeah.
procure to pay, which is finance process, or order to cash process. And I made fool of myself. And
Yeah.
that put my confidence level. Imagine meeting your boss for the very first time, putting your confidence level from here. I'm the guy. And
Yeah. I'm the man.
I need to go back to school. So
Just because of
I,
two little acronyms. I can't
yeah,
believe it.
So basically, what I did is I've asked a couple of friends of mine, and said like, "Hey, since I'll be working with many CFOs and so on, can I actually spend more time with you, looking at how do you how these processes look like, and learning these acronyms and learning the lingo? So I'm not only a techie talking, but actually someone who can grow. And this is basically, it's almost second part-time job out there to
Oh,
learn
yeah.
these how the business works and so on. So it's a very difficult skill
It
to
is.
acquire.
But
um
I'd like to ask you a bit more on this if I can, because one of the strategies that you mentioned is mentorship. So, there is you realize there's a gap in your knowledge, which translate into a gap in your
so
confidence. How, like, can you tell us a bit more on how that strategy helped us in your
um
confidence level and in your, knowledge?
okay, I'll tell you some of the best learning experiences that I had in the way how I'm building the business, how I'm building the teams right now, comes from non-related jobs. My first English speaking job really was I used to work at a hotel for seasons, literally on dishwasher. And this is where I've learned the importance of customer service, for example. But some of the best experiences that I have come from there. I had exposure at Xerox to work within extremely international teams. And that gave me also the growth of confidence. But every single time I was looking for people that actively would provide me feedback, what works, what doesn't, and what I need to focus on, like non-technology skills, but more on the business skills. So I was really lucky to find people that are willing to provide positive building feedback, right? On this
Mm,
is what you need to work on, or guide, or hey, I'm going to bring you to the meeting, and you can listen to the conversation and so on, to grab that a little bit of experience.
sure.
So I think a lot of people make a mistake around mentoring that is a business process, or it's something that a corporation or a business or
Yeah.
NGO should arrange for you. And I think that's a mistake. Mentorship is find someone who inspires you, or someone who has a skill or experience in something that you don't. And probably the most difficult part is to actually self-reflect and say, oh, I'm not really good at, understanding finance and accounting acronyms, or I'm not really good at storytelling. So for storytelling, I've actually found people that just inspired me on the meetings. Like, this was actually really cool. And even up until today, some of my mentors right now within the organizations are some of my closest friends, and they know stuff that obviously I wouldn't necessarily put it publicly, but they know where I'm still working on, right? So for example, I
Sure.
went through the phase from being a business person down to techie, and I had a phase where almost every single call, every single client meeting, every single internal meeting was only about technology. Instead of PowerPoint, it was Python. And some of the clients couldn't care less which programming language I'm going to use. It's about
Sure.
how you're going to help me. So
Yeah.
finding the mentors was important. The first step is not to find the right person. I think there was a quote when you are ready, the master will appear. I think quote
Something like
goes
that.
something like that. So I think the first step is to say, I'm actually missing out here on one.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to self-realize that. And I actually actively reach out to people and say, hey, what do you think? Or can you help me out with that? Or can I listen
Yeah.
to you? Or can I spend more time? Not only within the company, but
But
actually within the broader
yeah.
surrounding.
And there has to be that self-realization that, okay, I need help in this area, or I have a gap here. And that's how mentorship can be really effective, I believe, which is your approach. And I think is the best approach from this point of view. Yeah.
And it also grows you as a leader, because when you realize, for example, right now on director level, but when you're working with, new joiners, for example, right? When you go with them through some education processes and learning and teaching them, so becoming a mentor is as valuable as mentoring someone else. The
Mm.
reason behind it is it allows you to structure everything what you know as well, and it's really good tool for that self-reflection, both on technology and the business skill side. So you're saying, oh, okay, so how do you convey your experience, or how do you convey meaning behind, how do you communicate, for example, right? And you have to sit back sometimes, and even it might be 1 hour session. For example, I was doing a session for about creativity in the product design, and I had to see the back end and say, is there a framework for it in my head, that because I need to communicate it to these people as well. It's
Yeah.
great that it comes natural right now for me, but I need to
But
teach them, and it's great. It's like building Lego basic
oh
puzzles,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Absolutely. I can relate to that because when there is a concept, no matter how hard or how complicated, and you have to share it, and you need to find again a strategy. What's the most effective way to share it? And if you can do that, it means that it's clear in your head, and you can explain it, and you can really add value, which is a hard process because it takes a lot of self-reflection and trials and fail, trial and fail and all these sort of things. But eventually, once you can master that, you can see how it is empowering for you, for other people, and wow, best
and and
strategy ever, I'd say.
and the especially, for example, in field of mine that is extremely technical, right? So applied to artificial intelligence, there's a lot to take in, from math, statistics, data, the business process, and so on. And it's great that you have confidence in your own skills technically. But for example, one thing that I see in people that are just becoming leaders as well, right? They're finally getting their own teams assigned, or their own projects to the first run, is there are people from one side that are overconfident, and that's bad for them because they don't control, they don't seek out for feedback. On the other side, if there's a lot of people that don't feel confident because, for example, of the language barrier, or they are not really social you might say like that. So they're not accustomed to speak to many people. They have
Yeah.
close groups of friends,
Introvert.
or
Yeah,
they're
introverts. Yeah.
introverts.
Yep.
And for me, the great way how to recognize that is, for example, how people introduce themselves, right? Especially, for example, new joiners. And it's like, tell me something about it. And, oh, but you forgot to tell that you have PhD in machine learning, and you spend, years on research, and you contribute to open source. Tell that part of yourself as well,
Yeah.
and be open. So it's an exercise, like you said. It's something that I
Yeah.
build over.
Yeah. And back to storytelling. I mean, when
Yeah.
you go to an interview, when a presentation, whatever, even like if it's about yourself, you need to tell a story about yourself. It's not enough to go and just sit there passively, answer
Mm.
questions. There needs to be a bit more there, the so-called soft skills. There is a reason why they are so important, not so soft, when you
Yes.
think about their importance there, Um, Marek, just one curiosity. The dinner. How did it end? The dinner with your boss. This days keeps on coming back to my mind because I have this
Uh,
picture of you sitting there looking awkwardly at your boss. So how did it end after
oh,
that?
yeah. So that was an awkward
Oh,
moment, and that was years ago, and it still haunts me to date. But it was absolutely great lesson, honestly, because uh, yes, people around me look on the table look confused, but I would, they've actually welcomed it, probably, because I could openly, because as part of the, as I said, hey, I don't know much about finance. I know keyboard, I know code, I know how to build stuff, how to design it, but I don't know your word. I want to learn more. And I literally said, uh, openly said, for me, these acronyms sound is very different understanding of it than yours is. And I've asked, hey, you know what? I believe actually at the time I said, can you actually assign someone, or can you tell me who I can talk to actually
sure.
explain it to me? So it wasn't that I've went there and I said, I'm all knowing. I said, I actually welcome that, and they've been really open. And some of the people spend with me weeks or even months to build the foundation for it. And so I go back to the being confident talking about, for example, finance and accounting, but not from what they teach you in the at the university or in the school,
Yeah,
but actually from real business practitioners. And the best
sure.
part of it, it works both ways, because during that I could exchange ideas around the technology, or how do you design products, or how do you design services, um, into their work as well. And actually, some of these people right now are technology leaders as well. So they're coming from business area down to technology area as well. So it's every single time when something like that happens, it works both ways for you.
Oh
But
yeah,
you have to just be honest with you, and ask questions. I think the curiosity is one of the most important things
sure.
that drives business and leaders right now. Ask
Yeah,
questions.
curiosity.
Uh,
No,
and
absolutely. It's key, really. Marek, we're towards the end, right? We've touched so many fundamental points here, but if you had to summarize everything like in one sentence, so one final recommendation for people who want to have an international career like you, what would you say?
oh, that is probably the most difficult question that I had in a really long time. One, I would split it into two parts. It's one. It's typical consultant, right?
We
Oh,
can allow
give me
that.
one.
We can.
So be curious. So a lot of my inspiration, a lot of who am I as a person, or who am I as a leader, comes from being curious and asking questions, and uh, talking to people. And sometimes it goes out to us literally reach out to people that inspire you, or that might give you some value from it on LinkedIn, and say, hey, I loved your talk, or I watched your YouTube video, or I watched your
Sure.
podcast. I would like to know how to build a podcast, for example, right? It's how to create persona or personality within social media. You have to be curious and you have to actively seek. Don't expect that it's just going to come to you. And the second thing is with how the global business is right now built or shaped. It's okay to not have perfect English. Sometimes, yes, sometimes I'm looking at emails that I'm sending as like, what? Like, come on, like I've read it before pressing the send button and it does not make sense. Or can I actually recall that and rewrite some of the stuff? Because, I'm typing fast and just pouring my thoughts to email, and all of a sudden the email is, half hour long to read. And it's better to focus a little bit.
Sure.
So that's self-reflection. But it's something that you have to feel confident about and say, hey, I'm here. If I can address every single leader or a person that hopes to become a leader soon, right now watching or hearing this podcast, is be confident in who you are as a person. I always say the companies or the organizations hire you not because of your English. Obviously, it's or different language, right? It's important skill to have, but they hire
Sure.
you because of your expertise, experience, creativity, the value that you generate, or simply who you are as a person. And one thing, for years, I had really this drive to have the most perfect English, whatever. That obviously failed. Now it's, I think, okay-ish. But that reflection is, it's okay that we're non-native.
Yeah.
And people don't expect us to be natives. People are okay with it. It's okay to make mistakes. Obviously, if they're not huge, I wouldn't say like, yeah, I do checks using Word, or I Google stuff, or
Yeah.
so looking for synonyms and so on.
But
Like,
it's about communication in the end. So we need to
mhm.
understand each other, and that is the important bit, not the perfect grammar rule, not the, but yeah, you've summarized it quite well. So believe in yourself, believe in whatever you feel you have to say, and you can share, and then don't be afraid. Just put yourself out there. Eventually, that's what's gonna make a difference for you. Forget
Yeah.
about perfection, because no, I mean, the more I do it, and the more I understand that perfection doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
If I could put it in one word, yeah, that's it. It just doesn't exist.
And yourself, and you're in the right place, and don't stop growing as a person. Don't stop growing as a subject matter expert. The business doesn't sleep, the world doesn't sleep, the technology doesn't sleep. There's always something to learn.
Yeah,
I think, reflecting back on, for example, on my career, that's a great example, coming from service delivery down to product design, down to implementation, and now leading global teams. You have to be open to these experiences, and yeah,
wow,
and understand the value that you represent yourself. You're so much more than just that speed, native, non-native. In the global grander scheme of teams, well, taking some of the accents, like you've been in Ireland, so you know yourself. It's sometimes difficult to even understand.
sure, yeah,
The people from different cities. It's just okay.
yeah.
It's okay. We are who we are, and but that doesn't mean that we cannot stop learning or growing, right?
That's leadership in a nutshell. Absolutely. Marek, thank you very much indeed. It's been great. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and it's been great having you here.
Thank
And
you very much. Thanks for having me, and uh, I cannot wait to see future leaders inspired by you and your podcast as well. So
yeah,
thank you very much for doing that for
and
all
by
of
you,
us.
and by you. Thank you, Marek. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.